You know, every single time you switch your screen, like from an overflowing email inbox to just a really quick Slack message, and then you try to jump back into a complex spreadsheet, your brain is paying this hidden physiological tax.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And I mean, you don't necessarily feel it at 9 in the morning, right? But by 2 in the afternoon, that invisible tax has just completely bankrupted your
Right. Oh,
focus.
yeah. Totally bankrupted it.
You're staring at the screen, your eyes feel heavy, and it honestly feels like your mind is just, well, walking through wet cement.
It is an incredibly frustrating feeling.
Yeah.
And, it's entirely universal. You look at your to-do list, and the moment you try to lock in, you're just derailed.
Right.
Your attention feels brittle, I guess, like just snaps at the slightest vibration in your pocket, or, the mildest urge to check social media.
Exactly. But imagine if that afternoon crash wasn't inevitable. Today on our deep dive, we are digging into a massive stack of research to figure out why we actually do this to ourselves.
Yeah, we really put ourselves through it.
We do. We've pulled our own notes from recent neurobiology papers, behavioral psychology journals, and we are heavily using this brilliant synthesis sourced directly from Bookpedia. It basically breaks down the 8 biological rules our brains actually run on.
It's a great breakdown.
It really is. So our mission today is to find the hidden shortcut buttons in your own head to, turn on motivation, bypass that brain fog, and just completely rewire how you operate.
Because the reality is, most of us spend our days actively fighting against our brain's ancient biology. We try to just brute force our way to productivity.
Right, the whole hustle harder thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But when you finally understand the actual mechanisms of how the brain makes decisions, how it clears out waste and builds focus, you can achieve a level of output that feels, honestly, almost effortless.
Okay, let's unpack this, because before we can talk about the flashy stuff like how to accelerate your mind and get way more done, we really have to look at the hardware maintenance.
And foundation, yeah.
Right. Like, I mean, you wouldn't try to run the latest heavy-duty software on a laptop that hasn't been turned off in 4 years,
So
right?
it would melt.
Exactly. But we do that to our brains constantly, usually by, well, sacrificing sleep. We treat sleep like it's this completely optional luxury.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here is that historically, we've viewed sleep as this passive, dormant state, like a parking lot where the brain just powers down and basically does nothing.
Right, just going offline for a bit.
But modern neuroscience has completely shattered that idea. Sleep is actually a highly active, really aggressive state of biological cleanup.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Aggressive cleanup. How so?
Well, there is a specific mechanism called the glymphatic system that only really kicks into high gear when you are in deep sleep.
Wait, the glymphatic system? What is that doing while I'm, completely passed out?
Think of it as like a microscopic power washing system.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. When you sleep, your actual brain cells physically shrink. They contract to create these wider spaces between the neurons, and cerebrospinal fluid just rushes through those spaces.
Like actual power wash.
Exactly. It washes away the neurotoxins and metabolic waste that built up during the day. And one of the main things it washes away is a protein called amyloid beta, which is it's basically a byproduct of heavy thinking.
So when we decide, like, oh, I have way too much to do, I'll just sleep 5 hours. Or, we lie in the dark, letting the glow of TikTok hit our retinas until 2 a.m.
Which we all do.
Which we all do. Are we, like, literally shutting down the power washers?
You are canceling the cleaning crew.
Yeah.
Completely. And the amyloid beta just sits there, accumulating.
Oh, that sounds awful.
It is. That is exactly why you wake up with that profound mental fog.
Yeah.
Your brain is essentially swimming in the chemical exhaust of yesterday. You are forcing a clogged, overheated engine to process new, complex information.
Makes sense why I can't think straight on 4 hours of sleep.
Right. But when you allow that full cycle of deep sleep, the debris is cleared. You aren't just rested. Your neural pathways are literally physically clean.
Okay, that completely changes how I view an early bedtime. It's not like giving up on the day, it's prepping the hardware.
Exactly.
But, okay, even with a clean brain, we still hit a wall during the workday. We try to sit at our desks for 8 hours straight, and then we wonder why those last 3 hours produce total garbage work.
Well, this is where we run straight into our biological limits.
Yeah.
The human brain just does not operate on a flat, continuous line of energy.
Right.
It runs on what neuroscientists call ultradian rhythms. These are natural cycles of energy peaks and valleys.
Right.
Biologically speaking, your brain can only maintain a state of intense peak focus for about 90 to 120 minutes.
Okay, wait. I have to push back on that a bit.
Sure.
Because 90 to 120 minutes is great in like a laboratory setting.
Yeah.
But in the real world, you, the person listening right now, probably have a 4-hour block of back-to-back Zoom meetings today.
Oh, yeah. Standard corporate life.
Right. You can't just tell your boss, sorry, I'm respecting my ultradian rhythms. I need to go lie down.
You can't out-hustle biology, though. I mean, if you try to push past that 120-minute mark without a reset, your brain physically cannot sustain the high-frequency beta waves required for sharp focus.
So what happens?
You basically slide into a low-energy trough. You might still be looking at the Zoom screen, nodding your head, but your cognitive processing has essentially flatlined. You aren't retaining the information, and your decision-making completely degrades.
So what does this all mean for actually surviving the modern workday without getting fired?
It means micro-recoveries are non-negotiable.
Okay.
It doesn't require a 2-hour nap. It just requires intentionality. When you hit that 90-minute mark, taking a 5 to 10-minute break to just walk away from your screen, close your eyes, or focus on a distant object out the window, that allows the nervous system to dip out of that high alert state.
Just a 10-minute reset.
Yeah, you give your brain silent power, letting the chemicals replenish so you can re-enter the next task with actual clarity rather than just faking it.
All right, so we've got the hardware cleaned out overnight, and we're pacing ourselves with these micro breaks. But waking up with a rested brain doesn't magically mean you wake up driven.
No, it doesn't.
How do we actually jumpstart the engine? Usually we just dump a massive iced coffee into our system and hope for the best, right?
Yeah, the chemical jumpstart.
Okay. But the research points to a much more primal ignition switch, which is physical movement.
Yes.
Mhm.
We deeply underestimate the connection between the muscles and the mind. When we feel stuck on a problem, our instinct is usually to sit still, stare harder at the monitor, and try to just force the brain to work.
Yep, exactly.
But sitting stagnant is literally the worst possible thing you can do.
Because it's not just about getting the blood flowing right. The source material gets into the actual chemical changes happening when we move.
Exactly. When you engage in brisk physical movement, even just a 20-minute walk, your body begins producing a protein called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF for short.
Okay, BDNF.
Right. Neuroscientists often refer to BDNF as miracle grow for the brain.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's essentially a biological fertilizer that protects healthy brain cells
Yeah.
and actually stimulates the growth of new synaptic connections.
Wait, that is wild. So when I'm just taking a walk, my brain is literally manufacturing a protein that physically builds new pathways to solve the problem I was stuck on.
Yes. Regular movement physically changes the structural composition of your brain. Specifically, it thickens the hippocampus, which governs memory and learning.
That's crazy.
It is. And we've built this modern society where we go from the breakfast table to the car, to the office chair, to the couch. We are completely static.
Right.
And in doing so, we're literally starving our brains of the very fertilizer they need to grow and function sharply.
So movement is the baseline fuel. But fuel needs direction, which brings us to motivation.
Right.
And here is where I really want to challenge the source material. It argues heavily that logic does not drive action, emotion does.
Yes, that's a core rule.
The idea is that, an artist will paint for a month straight, or an athlete will train at 4 a.m. because they have this emotional fire. And without emotion, a goal is just a lifeless checklist.
That is a fundamental truth of human psychology, yeah.
Sir, and it sounds beautiful when we're talking about painting a masterpiece or winning a gold medal, but let's be real.
Okay.
How on earth do you or me or the listener find an emotional fire when we're just sitting in a gray cubicle filling out a totally mundane, soul-crushing spreadsheet?
Yeah, I get that.
Logic says do this or you're fired. Where's the emotion in data entry?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to look at how the brain processes motivation at a biological level. Deep inside the brain is the amygdala, which processes emotion.
Okay.
Behind your forehead is the prefrontal cortex, which handles logic and executive function. If the amygdala doesn't care, the prefrontal cortex won't engage.
So the logic center literally shuts.
Exactly. The spreadsheet itself is completely devoid of emotion. But the emotional drive doesn't come from the cells on the screen, right? It comes from tracing that specific boring task back to its ultimate why.
So you have to mentally build a bridge from the boring task to, like, a core desire.
Exactly. Like, why are you doing that spreadsheet?
Yeah.
Maybe finishing it flawlessly secures the paycheck that pays for your child's piano lesson.
Oh, I see.
Or maybe mastering that boring system is the exact stepping stone you need to get the promotion that will finally give you the financial freedom you're craving.
Right.
Logic says, I must finish this by 5 p.m., but logic will surrender to the 3 p.m. slump.
Yeah.
Emotion like the fierce desire to provide for your family or the pride of mastering your domain, that is the invisible engine.
Yeah.
When you connect the mundane action to a deeply personal emotional outcome, the amygdala lights up. The brain stops viewing it as a chore and sees it as a survival mechanism for your goals.
I really love that. You aren't just doing data entry, you are literally funding your freedom. That completely flips the script.
It does.
Okay, so we are rested, we've got the BDNF flowing from our walk, and we've ignited the emotional engine. Now we have all this incredible energy, but we have to aim it. And this is where most of us completely sabotage ourselves.
Oh, big time.
We scatter this energy everywhere through multitasking.
Multitasking is the great modern delusion. It is a false comfort that makes us feel incredibly productive while we actually achieve very little.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because we've all heard that multitasking is bad, but the mechanism behind it is terrifying. We used to think multitasking was like trying to water a garden by frantically whipping a hose back and forth, right? Water goes everywhere, but nothing gets soaked.
Right.
But it's actually much worse than that, isn't it?
It is significantly worse. True multitasking processing two cognitively demanding tasks simultaneously is a biological impossibility for the human brain.
Wow.
What you are actually doing is rapid, continuous task switching.
So it's less like a swinging hose and more like having a computer with 100 heavy tabs open.
That's a perfect analogy.
And every single time you switch from writing a report to checking an email to answering a Slack message, your brain has to completely reboot its operating system to load the new rules for that specific task.
That is a brilliant way to put it. And every time you force that reboot, you pay what neuroscientists call a cognitive switching penalty.
Yikes.
Yeah. But there is an even deeper issue called attention residue.
Attention residue.
Yeah, so when you look away from your deep, complex project to quickly read an email and then jump back to the project, your attention doesn't instantly transfer back 100%. A piece of your cognitive focus remains stuck or left behind as residue on that email.
Oh, man. So if you do that 50 times a morning, your attention is literally fractured into 50 pieces just scattered across the digital landscape.
Exactly. And this constant fracturing doesn't just kill your output. It physically triggers a stress response. Your brain misinterprets this chaotic, scattered environment as an actual threat.
Which leads right into how we fundamentally misunderstand stress. I mean, we treat stress as this emotional failing like, oh, I'm just feeling overwhelmed today.
Right.
But the research clearly shows stress isn't just a bad mood. It is a physiological state that actively downgrades your intelligence.
This raises an important question about how we view anxiety in the workplace. When you are caught in that cycle of shallow, fractured attention, your body releases cortisol, which is the primary stress hormone.
And cortisol is bad for focus.
Very bad. High levels of cortisol actually suppress activity in your prefrontal cortex.
Wait, the logic center we just talked about?
Yes, the exact part of your brain responsible for complex problem-solving, creativity, and rational thought. So when you are stressed, you are literally losing access to your executive function.
That's horrifying.
It is. You start overthinking small decisions, you make careless errors, and you view every minor setback as a total catastrophe.
It's burning up your productivity from the inside out. So what is the biological fix here? Because telling someone to just calm down has literally never worked for anyone in the history of humanity.
No, it never works.
Yeah.
The fix is recognizing that stress is an alarm bell. It's a biological signal that your system is out of balance. When the alarm rings, pushing harder into the work is the absolute worst response.
So what do?
You have to pause.
Yeah.
You step away, use that physical movement we discussed earlier to literally metabolize the cortisol out of your bloodstream and then return to the task with a completely different approach to focus.
Which means committing to quiet productivity, right? Society tells us that being productive means being loud, chaotic, and reachable on like 3 different platforms at once.
Yeah, the whole always-on culture.
But real extraordinary results come from shutting all the tabs, sitting down, and acting like a laser beam on one single task.
Absolutely. That absolute unbroken presence is where deep work happens. It is where you accomplish in 2 hours what takes a scattered mind 2 days.
All right, so we've learned how to clean the hardware, generate the fuel, and focus the beam.
We're getting there.
But we consume so much information every day. Like we hear these great ideas, we feel super inspired, and then a week later we are right back to our old habits.
Oh, all the time.
So how do we actually make this stick? How do we permanently wire these behaviors into our brains?
We have to lean into the brain's native language, which is repetition and neuroplasticity. We often treat our brains like a hard drive. We think if we read something once, it's just saved in a folder forever.
Right.
But the brain is actually a muscle.
Right. I mean, you wouldn't do 10 push-ups on a Tuesday and expect to have a muscular chest for the rest of the year.
Exactly. When you learn a new concept like committing to single-task focus, you are forming a very fragile, thin neural pathway. If you don't use it again, the brain literally prunes it away to save energy,
It just deletes it.
basically.
Mm.
But every single time you repeat that behavior, a substance called myelin wraps around that specific neural circuit. Yeah. Myelination acts like heavy-duty insulation on a copper wire.
Yeah.
The more you repeat the action, the thicker the insulation gets, and the faster and more automatic that electrical signal becomes.
Neurons that fire together, wire together.
You got it.
So it's not enough to just say, I'm going to stop multitasking. You have to repeatedly, consciously force yourself to do it until the myelin is so thick that focus literally becomes your default biological setting.
Repetition turns conscious effort into unconscious identity.
And the ultimate shortcut to accelerating that process, according to the research, is stopping our reliance on text and moving to visual processing, right?
Yes, huge shift.
Because the brain processes images incredibly fast, and yet, what do we do in the adult world? We communicate exclusively in massive blocks of text.
It is a profound mismatch with our biology.
Yeah.
A huge portion of the human brain's cortex is devoted solely to processing visual information. When you read a block of text, your brain has to do an immense amount of arbitrary work.
What kind of work?
Well, it has to look at the shapes of the letters, decode them into sounds, string the sounds into words, derive abstract meaning from the sentence, and then try to construct a mental image.
Oh, right. Think about this in your own life. Think about the last 40-page text-heavy PDF strategy document your boss sent you.
It's exhausting just thinking about it.
Right. Your brain literally rebelled against it. It felt like a physical weight trying to get through it. Contrast that with how instantly you understand a really complex geopolitical issue when you see it presented in a 60-second color-coded map animation.
Because the visual completely bypasses the decoding process. It hits the visual cortex and the emotional centers of the brain simultaneously. You absorb the relationship between the concepts in a fraction of a second.
That makes so much sense.
This is exactly why children learn so rapidly from picture books, and why learning slows down so dramatically when we arbitrarily decide that, adults should only learn from dry black and white text.
So if you want to remember the insights from today, or if you want to map out a massive project for your team, stop typing out endless bullet points.
Please stop.
Use a whiteboard, build a mind map, use color coding, feed your brain the visual language it actually craves.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, we have covered some deeply transformative ground today. We completely changed how we view sleep. It is not downtime. It is a vital, glymphatic power wash for your neurons.
Crucial step.
We learned that physical movement isn't just about fitness. It's about generating the BDNF fertilizer your brain needs to grow. We connected mundane tasks to deep emotional drivers to spark the amygdala.
Yep.
We destroyed the myth of multitasking, realizing that the 100-tab OS reboot is destroying our focus and jacking up our stress. And finally, we uncovered how myelination through repetition and visual processing makes it all permanent.
But, as with all neuroscience, understanding the mechanism is really only the beginning. The shift only occurs when you actually change your behavior. But before we wrap up, looking at all of this data raises a rather provocative thought about the future of how we work.
Oh, lay it on us.
Well, if modern neuroscience explicitly proves that the human brain fundamentally requires physical movement to generate cognitive fertilizer,
Right.
and if it requires rich visual stimulation rather than endless text, and if it absolutely depends on 90-minute cyclical breaks to prevent biological collapse.
Yeah.
What does this mean for the traditional 8-hour sedentary desk job? I mean, we have built a corporate world that actively fights human biology.
We really have.
So might the most successful, dominant companies of the future be the ones that actually force their employees to disconnect? The ones that mandate stepping away from screens, require daily physical movement, and completely tear down the current model to redesign the workplace entirely around the brain's ancient primal biology.
Wow. Imagine a workplace where a mandatory 20-minute walk is prioritized by leadership over jumping into another pointless Zoom meeting.
It would change everything.
A company built for humans, not hard drives. And it all circles back to where we started. Tomorrow morning, you are going to wake up. Are you going to keep fighting against your own biology, pushing an overheated, scattered brain to its breaking point? Or are you going to use these biological rules, respect the hardware, and wake up ready to master your mind? The science is incredibly clear. The choice of how you operate is up to you.